What's a funny memory you have that if you told someone, they'd think you're lying? My first year in college, I arrived late at night to my dorm. And the weirdest thing happened in the elevator. I got in the elevator to go up to my floor. It stopped on the second floor, which has no rooms, it's all resources that close at 10 p.m. The only thing open at that time was just the landing for some stairs. This guy gets in from whatever he was doing, and he's singing the theme song from Arthur. A little strange, but then it got weirder. As the doors close, he notices a note posted about a student who had recently passed away, with information about counseling and all that. He puts his hand on the note, and stops singing. He says, "Alex, this is for you," and I said, "Hey." And then starts over his singing with a whole new level of vigor. The whole experience was like 45 seconds, and it was the strangest 45 seconds of my life. Went for a James Blunt concert in Hamburg, Germany this April and got the most awesome hug of my life from James Blunt himself. I am like 195 centimeters in height and not the skinniest fella, so it must have looked pretty weird from afar. After the show was over, a married couple who sat behind me came to me and the woman told me how jealous she was. TLDR, it was my first live concert ever and got hugged by James Blunt. Sadly, most people do not believe me. I was doing some work on the access control system in an office. It was an interior door where you had to swipe a card to get through. We were in the process of replacing the system, so I had the badge reader pulled off the wall but had also removed the door strike that actually keeps the door shut. You walk up to the door and the reader is missing, but it's also quite obvious nothing is holding the door closed currently. Just look at the door handle and you can see the plunger is just in space. So while I'm working on it, the employees who need to come and go can still get through the door. It wasn't a high security type situation, so being unsecured for a couple hours while I worked on it wasn't a big deal. So I'm up on a ladder with my head in the ceiling dealing with a big splice tying in new wiring to the existing hardware. I hear a voice yell from the other side of the door, "Where's the reader?" I yell back, "I'm doing some work on it but you can come on through." They respond with, "But the reader's not there, how do I get the door open?" As I said, I had the strike removed and just looking at the door it's extremely obvious you can just pull the door open, but this person somehow isn't getting it. Rather than try to explain further, I just sighed to myself and thought, what are you, blind? Put down the splice I was working on, climbed down the ladder, and opened the door from the inside. Lady is standing there wearing blackout glasses and holding the harness of a service dog. She was in fact blind. At which point I thought, alright, fair enough. Glad I didn't say that out loud. A man tried to have my son and his friend arrested for not helping him catch a dog. Background: my parents live in an old house, and my brother moved into one that's a bit of a fixer-upper. My dad knows how to do carpentry, electrical, and plumbing, and passed this knowledge on to us through home renovations. I am forbidden from using the phrase, "Hey guys, wouldn't it be hilarious if," because every time I do, that thing happens in the worst way possible, even if it's something wild and implausible. Would it be hilarious if the old porch was solid concrete? It was, with 1-inch thick rebar holding it together. Wouldn't it be hilarious if that wire was still live? It was, and power to the entire house was shut off. Someone wired this outlet in before the circuit breakers. Wouldn't it be hilarious if that old pipe was full of water still? Brother cut into it, water began gushing out. Wouldn't it be hilarious if this trellis was holding up the entire wall? Wall began rapidly sagging down because the damn trellis was structurally integral. Bill Murray yelled at my friend. I know the memes about Bill Murray, but this one actually happened to an ex-friend. Bill Murray is, or at least was, part owner of the Charleston Riverdogs, a single-a-ball club. My friend and I went to a game and he was out there early signing baseballs and throwing them to kids in the crowd. He threw one to a kid but his aim was a little off and my friend grabbed it. Bill Murray yelled at him to give the ball to the kid, my friend yelled back, a yelling match ensued. I haven't talked to that friend in like 15 years, but Bill Murray yelling at him is really the only memory I have of him. When I was a kid, probably 13 or so, I came home from school one day and I swung my key around on the lanyard and threw it at the door, because I was ninja fighting something invisible that'd be vulnerable to a single key on a string. The key actually hit the keyhole and just popped in there. I was alone, so nobody would ever know that I actually was a ninja. Nobody has ever believed me, except my wife, but she didn't care at all. I don't work as a ninja today. Unfortunately. I was at Comic-Con once in New Orleans a few years back. I went to the bathroom and everything was normal, until I noticed the guy at the urinal next to mine. Real tall, long hair and beard, tatted out the wazoo. I swear I've seen this guy before. Wait a minute, it's fucking Jason Momoa. I'm pissing with Aquaman. We both washed our hands and I was like, hey man, my mom's a huge fan of yours, we have a picture scheduled for the meet and greet later so you'll get to meet her. And he was like, alright cool, can't wait. So we walked around the convention until the photo session, and when we went in he recognized me. We even got an extra picture with just my mom and him. It was awesome. When I was a kid, I was riding fast down a hill on my bike, and something small hit me in the eye, so I skidded to a halt. I absolutely could not open my eye from whatever was in there. I walked my bike home and tried everything to get whatever it was out, splashing water, dipping my whole eye in a glass of water, that technique Batman demonstrated in the little PSAs at the end of the Super Friends, I'm that old, where you pull your top lid over the bottom. And ultimately just rubbing it frantically. Nothing worked, but I was ultimately able to open my eye and I was fine, though it felt irritated. Late that night, I'm sitting in bed reading comic books and I feel a little thing on my eyelid. I rub it away, and it's a whole ass housefly, dead and covered in wet goop. This thing traveled into my eye socket after all the rubbing and eventually just popped out dead hours later. No one has ever believed this wasn't just a mistaken childhood memory. So these two boys who bullied me in primary school ate lunch with my friend group one day, for whatever reason. And one of them was eating a cheese and bacon roll, big bread roll with melted cheese and diced bacon on it, and begins choking on a piece of bacon. His best mate points and laughs and teases him, till the bacon is dislodged from the first boy's throat and goes flying into the second guy's wide open mouth and he begins to choke. When he spat it out, they both turn to the whole group and say very embarrassed and grumpily, "Not funny." Exclamation mark. Sorry, but it was pretty funny. It wasn't funny when it happened. Lady on a mom's Facebook says no one is coming to her kid's birthday party and asks if anyone wants to, just so he isn't alone. Free, at a bounce place, just show up. My boys are about the same age. We stop and get a small gift and head to the party. They are having a blast. Birthday kid is great. I am standing with mom and we are talking, general get to know you questions. I ask what brought her to my western state. She says earth pods. I don't know what earth pods are, so I low-key Google it. Eco-friendly structures is what it boils down to. Okay, crunchy, but not that weird. She tells me about homeschooling and organic gardening. I tell her about my success with growing tomatoes here. It is a wholesome conversation. Well over to the left of us, her husband is talking to a set of parents. He lifts up his shirt arm and reveals a large garish cross tattoo. He says, "This represents the good side of me. It is a positive reminder of how life should be led." I think to myself, okay, religious crunchy folks, not really my jam, but free fun for the kids, this is the price. Then on the side I can't see, he lifts up his other shirt arm and says, "This represents my masculine side, this dark side of me." Some people freak out when I show them my Satan tattoo, but it is a big part of our lives, your Satan tattoo. Exclamation mark. He goes on to how he is raising the kids to know Christ but worship Satan. I know my face gave me away with a WTF look on it. I look over to mom, who has now moved over by dad. I look at the folks around near the table and only one other mom shares my look. I am trying to think to best handle this when another mom, with rainbow hair, and dad pipe up with, "We are members of a local Satanist church. We donate regularly to it and its causes." This was not satire, she was serious. They launch into a discussion of the finer points of Satan worship and child rearing. Another mom pipes up with, "So, anyone want to buy some Girls Out cookies?" I see my chance, I say yes. I snag the kids and follow her out to the car. This itself may not have been my safest choice, as she may not have added to the Satan conversation, but she was unfazed by it. But it all went well. A box of Thin Mints and we were off. Moral of the story is, don't meet random people off the internet for birthday party fun. They may end up being hippie Satanists. The time Christian Bale called my house on Christmas Eve to say hi to my kids. My children were obsessed with Batman at the time, and the movie was slated to come out the following year. They didn't know who he was, so they wouldn't come to the phone, lol. Our oldest daughter is an actress now, and I tease her about this every Christmas Eve. Nobody ever believes me, but I'll tell it anyway. One morning I was out for a leisurely stroll in the park. It was a beautiful day. The neighborhood was full of life. As I passed the park, I noticed a man was following me. I began to increase my pace and he continued to pursue. Finally, as I began to run, I passed some children playing in the park. You'll never believe it, but as he passed the children, he asked him to assist him in capturing me. He even threatened to call the police if they didn't help. I never thought that life in the city could be so dangerous for a dog. When I was like 6, I was running around the apartment complex in my cowboy outfit, complete with hat, chaps, and a cap gun. Look it up. The Goodyear blimp was in town for something. An adult strolled by and said, "Hey kid, shoot the blimp." I demurred, "I don't think that's a good idea." The guy kept walking. I waited until he was gone. I drew my toy gun, aimed carefully, and shot the blimp. I shit you not, it started going down. It disappeared behind the trees. I ran a little ways toward it, stopping when I got to a parking lot that I had been instructed not to cross. I really wanted to see the downed blimp, but I was pretty sure they would know it was me. I went home and was very quiet as I waited to get in trouble for shooting the blimp out of the sky, but nothing happened. The next day I asked my dad where the blimp was, he told me it probably went back to Akron. I felt like I was safe at that point. During my middle and high school years I'd float down canals with my brother and friends. During the summer between our junior and senior year, me, my brother, and our best friend, we'll call him Tyler here, were floating down a canal out by Tyler's house. It was a beautiful day and we're just soaking up the sun in this murky, dirty ass water. As we're floating, swimming, joking and overall having a jolly good time, my brother abruptly puts his arms out and stops us as he shouts, "What the fuck was that?" Tyler and I didn't see shit, but my brother insists there was a big ass snake that dove underwater no more than 5 feet from us. We all stay in the same spot, slowly circling and scanning the water around us. Sure enough, we see something surface in the tall grass near the canal bank. We couldn't quite make it out, but it definitely wasn't a snake. We start slowly moving closer and it swims out of the grass, and it's the biggest fucking beaver I've ever seen. It's also the only beaver I've ever seen in person, but that's besides the point. The bitch was huge. Anyways, as we get closer Mr. Beaver dives under again. I start swimming after it in the direction it dove, and it surfaces right in front of me. I snatched it out of the water and turn around holding it up in the air like it's fucking Simba. I fucking caught it. Tyler doesn't want to hold him, but my brother said he wanted to. At this point I hadn't turned the beaver around to look at it, so when I handed it off to my brother it was facing him. As soon as I handed it off, "Leave it to fucking beaver," hisses at my brother and slaps its tail on the water. Scared the shit out of all of us, but my brother most of all. He shouted, "Oh shit," and threw it back into the water. We were laughing our asses off, but I swam after it and caught it again. There was a small waterfall up ahead where the canal dropped to go under the road. We didn't float over this waterfall because there was large chunks of concrete at the bottom and it was easily an 8-foot drop. Thinking we were saving the beaver, we climbed out of the canal and put him on the dirt road that ran next to it. The ungrateful little shit scuttled right back into the canal and dove. I know it went over the waterfall, but we didn't see it surface on the other side. I don't know for sure if it survived or not, but I'm fairly confident it must have. Anyways, that's the story, and I tell it because I think it's a cool story. How many people can say they caught a beaver with their bare hands, not once, but twice? In a fucking small farming town in buttfuck Egypt. The kicker is, when I told friends at church and when we went back to school in the fall, my brother and Tyler fucking denied it. I don't know if it was some diabolical plan that they concocted or just something they did on the spot. The first time I told the story, they were present for it. Tyler said, "Quit lying," and my brother asked, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Nobody ever believed me because the only other witnesses wouldn't corroborate the story. They were so committed to driving me insane, they'd even deny the story in our own private conversations. I don't tell the story often, unless a conversation steers towards it, and let's be honest, how often does your average Joe have a conversation about swimming in canals or even have a discussion about beavers? When I do tell it, it's about 50-50 of whether or not people believe me. My brother has since passed away, and he took the truth to his grave. I've called Tyler before to ask him to corroborate the story, and to this day, 12 years later, he'll deny the story. Like I said, I don't tell it often, and I don't try to prove it anymore. If I do, he'll just say, "That never happened," or, "Nah, he's making it up." Fucking diabolical. TLDR, caught the biggest and only beaver I've ever seen with my bare hands, twice, in a small town irrigation canal. My brother and friend were there, but have always denied the story. When I was about 19 and working at a gas station near an interstate highway, I saw a Volkswagen bus pull in. Sure enough, a few stoner, hippie types hop out with good vibes and love and approach me at the register. I'm playing the violent femmes in the store, and it was when you could still smoke cigarettes inside, so I'd been smoking weed too. Obviously. They took one look at my tattooed, 6 feet, pierced, fuchsia-haired self and smelled the dank weed I'd been smoking and knew I was cool. They told me they didn't have a lot of money for gas, but they had a bunch weed and acid, and wondered if I'd be down to trade for $30 of gas. That was enough to fill a big-ass van back then. "I'd just gotten paid, sir," I said. "What you guys got?" They went to the van and returned an ounce of crazy good weed and 10 gel tabs. My jaw dropped. I'm like, "Are you sure?" They're like, "Yeah ma, have fun, share it with your friends, spread love and do good, you're a good human." Blessings. They all hugged me and the store definitely smelled like patchouli the rest of the day, but they made my day and then some. I had been having a crap day and that was the best perk up, helping people out and getting a shit ton of crazy drugs. The next day the Wiener Dog mobile thing came through and gave me a Wiener Dog mobile whistle, but they didn't really bring good vibes and drugs, woman shrugging. When I was like 12, I got stabbed by, I believe they are called compass. It helps you draw circles, they look like a upside down V and one of the legs has a nail and on the other end you mount a pencil. Either way, my best friend held it up for some reason, and when I turned around, it just cleanly stabbed right through my hand. Both he and I froze and just stared at my hand, clearly seeing how the nail showed on the other side of the hand. But it didn't feel like anything, so kinda quickly we just pulled it out and not an inch of blood came out. We tried showing the teacher, but you couldn't see with the naked eye where it went in, and there was no blood, so she just like, okay. So we just never talked about it. So like last year or so it somehow came up and I told this to him and he just froze and stared at me like, holy shit, I've always thought that was a dream. And I could just see the whole flashback of memories hitting him. Still no one else believes I was cleanly stabbed in the hand. I was driving a friend home to Indianapolis from Holy Cross in South Bend. We got pulled over for speeding and the cop asked me, son, do you know how fast you were going? To which I replied with a straight face and no sarcasm, well, my cruise control was set at 88, so I'm guessing somewhere in the vicinity of 88. I've never seen such a confused look on a person's face. He proceeds to ask if I can step out of my vehicle and into his so he can talk to me while he writes me a ticket. I comply, and as he's writing me up, he's explaining to me how he had to do his Sharif training in Indianapolis. He said that the one thing that amazed him was how fast locals drive, especially on I-465, and he understands why I'm conditioned to do so. Soon as he's done with the ticket, he turns to me and says, so here's the deal, you're the first motorist to ever admit to me you knew you were speeding, so I'm gonna cut you a break. If you can make it back to Indy without getting another ticket, I won't turn this one in, but if you do, you're getting two. I slowed down for the rest of the drive. A few decades ago, I was in the city for whatever reason. On my way to the metro, I encountered this tourist who seemed a bit lost. Finding tourists aren't rare, they're everywhere in the summer. Though this was a smaller street with nothing around and he was looking confused. So I approached him and asked if I could help him. Yes, indeed I could. He said he got a bit overconfident and was for a walk, and now he could not find his way back to the hotel. Hotel in question was the expensive one in the city, quite a bit away. I knew it would be more confusing to explain how to get back via bus, metro, so I just walked him there. We had a really nice and pleasant conversation, and in it he told me he was in town for a few concerts, so I asked him which ones. He looked at me with a smirk and said his name is Bryan Adams and he is having a concert the next day, and 2 more. Can't remember, and he would like to invite me to one. As a thank you for bringing him back to the hotel. Now, I didn't knew much about him, but I just could not believe it. In my mind, this friendly guy might be part of the gig, but no way Bryan Adams would cross my path like that. I refused to believe it, and we both had actually some laughs about it. He even showed me his driver's license, I think it was, but no. I wasn't buying it. Once we arrived at the hotel, we shook hands and parted. That was it for me. So I thought. Told this story to my boyfriend when he got home, and he was not happy that I didn't accepted tickets. Bryan Adams was indeed in town. A few weeks later, an instructor of mine told me a funny story she heard from her partner. He works at a record company and is the guy who personally takes care of the stars. So he told her about Bryan Adams, who told him he got lost in the city and a lovely lady offered to bring him back. And that she would not believe him in who he was, not even after showing his license and no tickets. They had a great laugh about it, and he said it never happened before and that he enjoyed it. TBH, I am still suspicious, but yeah. Looks like I turned down free concert tickets from Bryan Adams himself, including disbelieving him. True or not, makes me smile thinking about it, and it made me more open to take chances. I've been arrested for murder. Neighbors' animals, donkeys, llamas, rams, goats kept getting in my yard. I have kids that play outside, and a kick from a donkey or headbutt from a ram would be deadly to them. So I told the guy that if animals come into my yard one more time, I'm shooting them. One day I see a donkey out there and take my rifle and kill it. I figured I was in the right after all the warnings, so I call animal control to get the carcass. Since I live in the country, a constable was sent out. I knew this guy and knew he was in a hole. He jumps out of his truck, hand on his weapon, and yells at me to show my hands. When he sees I'm not armed, he asked what happened. I explained the whole situation and that I killed the donkey. He immediately grabs me and throws me against his truck and says I'm under arrest. I was scared and asked for what. He says murder! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. I repeated, murder. He says, yes, murder of a donkey. He ended up calling a sheriff's deputy and they couldn't find anything to charge me with, so he said if the DA finds something to charge me with, they will come find me. This was 14 years ago and I haven't heard anything since. Oh, and the whole constable ended up losing his law enforcement license after he was found to be corrupt. Chuck Harris is, you want to look him up. When I was 5, my mom married my stepdad. After the wedding ceremony, I went to the bathroom. When I came out, everyone was gone. Not a car or person in sight. I knocked on the priest's door. This was a Catholic church and the priest's house was on the property. He knew us pretty well and offered to drive me to my mom's friend, who was the maid of honor and lived closer by. On the way there, we passed my mom's friend who was rushing back to find me. Everyone thought I just drove back with someone else. I've actually been accused of lying on this one, so I think it qualifies. When I was 13, back in the 1980s, I was rushed to the hospital because I had the symptoms of appendicitis. The doctor was doing his best to help me not be afraid, so he was trying to be a Patch Adams, and was cracking a bunch of jokes. Well, part of the diagnostics for this involves a proctological exam, which I had never even heard of. So the doctor has me get on the table on my hands and knees. He lubes up and starts doing the highly uncomfortable and humiliating exam, but he was still asking me a lot of questions because at that point, he was expecting to rush me into surgery. He asked about various symptoms and pain, and then said, "How about your balls? Any pain in your balls?" I'm in a lot of pain, a doctor has his fingers up my ass, and I get visibly flustered. So he asked, "Is everything okay?" I responded with something like, "I guess I just expected this to be more clinical. But you're just chatting with me and resting your other hand on my back during all this." Without missing a beat, Patch Adams can't miss his next opportunity for a joke and says, "Hey, you don't have anything to worry about unless you feel both my hands on your back." Short one, yet true nonetheless. Having a hectic day once, running errands I didn't enjoy. Grocery shopping, quick Home Depot visit, going to bank, etc., etc. I forgot an item I needed at home for bank teller, so I drive back irritated, driving fast, trying to make it back to bank before closing time. As I turn into my apartment's parking lot there, I notice ahead of me a squirrel. I hit my brakes to let the squirrel run by, but he's just sitting there, nibbling on something. As I slowly drive closer, I notice this squirrel is not only nibbling on fries, but he's imitating dipping a single fry into a crushed and empty ketchup packet. I looked around to see if anyone was seeing what I was seeing. I couldn't believe it. This mofo was dipping a fry in ketchup. A squirrel. I didn't take a picture because my phone was dead. Proof for it didn't happen, I know. But I think about this memory once a month or so, and it's been 2 years. No one ever believes me. A Bigfoot sighting would have been more plausible. Sometimes I think the fry-eating squirrel was a form of deity or God, reminding me to slow the F down in life. Who knows? Many moons ago, I was 15 at the time. We were at a house party. We were all drinking, smoking weed, usual teenage nonsense. My parents were pretty cool in that they knew what we were doing, knew they couldn't stop it, so they followed that "Don't get in a car if someone's been drinking, call us and we'll come get you." So around 11:30 p.m. or so, I called my dad and said, "I need a ride." We were on the edge of town, right where it starts to become rural. So I asked my dad, "Can you meet us at insert intersection?" Myself and my friend walked down to the intersection, dark road, semi-rural, and my friend at the time drank too much. Decided he needed to stick his fingers down his throat and get rid of some of the liquor in his system. So there he is, wrenching his guts out at the side of the road. A car passes and I see a light bar on top. It's a cop. He hits his brakes. I say, "Oh fuck," thinking we're about to get jammed up again for drinking underage. When suddenly crash, the cop gets rear-ended by another cop. Don't know how or why, I just know that I watched one cop slam into the back of another cop car. I did not need to be told. That was my cue to exit. Me and my friend booked it out of there. About 10 minutes later, we circled the block and came around from the opposite direction we ran in. Doing our best. What happened? Just as my dad pulled up, I lost my nan in Bangkok airport. Me, my mum, sister and nan were traveling to Phuket, Thailand, and had to make 3 crossovers, Manchester Airport to Dubai to Bangkok to Phuket. We got to Bangkok exhausted after 7 to 9 hours of flying, only to find out the next plane was in another 16 hours. My mum had then realized that she never noticed it when booking the flights. Ex-Houston, we asked if there was a hotel in the airport, which thankfully there was, so we thought it was best we sit my nan down somewhere as she has weak legs. We found a Burger King in the airport and sat her down there while me, mum and sister contacted our family members who were supposed to meet us at Phuket, but now had to tell them we would be a while. They came back moment later to find my nan was screaming Fanta over the counter at the poor staff member in Burger King, as understandably we were in another country and he couldn't understand her, and she got frustrated. She was exhausted and even admitted she wanted to go home. Bless her. After some food and calming down, me, mum and sister were about to go looking for the airport hotel. Being adventurous, I wanted to go with them, which meant we would leave me nan with the luggage. We walked and walked and walked through the airport until we had ended up in the same area we had left my nan in, so we thought we must have looped the airport and ended back up where we started, me, mum said to me and my sister. We found the hotel and booked 2 rooms. We made our way back to the Burger King only to realize it wasn't the same one. Counter was bigger and in a different place to where we left our nan. We looked and the area was nearly identical to where we had left her, a Buddha statue in the center which was surrounded by these little shops. I then asked me mum, wasn't there an ice cream shop there? Pointing to a corner which was now a cafe. It then hit my mum and sister that we had walked into the departures area from the arrival area. They thought, oh, we could just walk back to the area we left her. However, it just wasn't that simple. 30 minutes turned into an hour and we couldn't find a way back to arrivals. We asked staff for help, but again we knew no Thea and they only knew a little bit of English. Problem could have been sorted if we had smartphones with us back then. They sent us to the Imposter Burger King or the information desk, which would then send us back to the Imposter Burger King again. It took about another 30 minutes, but we worked out and got back to arrivals where me Nan was still sitting with the luggage. She wasn't happy when she saw us. What happened to you lot? You've been gone for nearly 2 hours. We got her and took her the hotel on the other side and rested up for a flight. We look back and laugh a lot because it was like some sort of comedy sketch.